George worked for a telecommunications company and attended 3 business shows each year in different cities. These shows lasted 5 days, starting on Tuesday morning and ending at noon on Thursday. For 5 years George had worked diligently at each of these shows, always staying until the last box was packed and loaded onto the truck on Thursday afternoon. Was interrupted during the last show in May at the San Diego Convention Center. On a Tuesday night during the show, George twisted his ankle so badly that he was unable to work in their booth the next day. By lunchtime on Wednesday, his boss saw no reason for him to stay if he couldn't work and suggested he fly home early. George, eager to get back, was on a plane back to St. Louis by 2 a.m. That afternoon, before boarding the flight, he called his wife Tammy to tell her he'd be home by 8 p.m. Tammy had been upset with George about something before his trip, but she refused to discuss it and chose to wait until he returned, despite his sprained ankle and early departure from the conference. George was relieved to be going home early to deal with whatever was troubling his wife. But upon arriving home, he was confronted with an unexpected and shocking situation that would change his life. On arriving home, George noticed a black Cadillac in the driveway, a vehicle belonging to someone he didn't recognize. This aroused his suspicions, especially as Tammy knew he was returning home early. As he quietly made his way through the house, the sound of voices led him to the family room. Peering in from the kitchen, George was struck by the sight of Tammy sitting on the sofa with his best friend Chad Williams. The shock wasn't just seeing them together, it was Tammy's unbuttoned blouse that stunned him. George stepped into view and demanded to know what was going on. Tammy's reaction was startling. Instead of showing guilt or rushing to explain, she seemed almost to be expecting this confrontation, greeting George with a smile and a tone that suggested this was all part of some unfathomable plan. George was determined to confront Chad regardless of his size or George's injured ankle, but before he could take another step, he was grabbed from behind by another man he hadn't noticed before. Later introduced as Tyrone, he maneuvered quickly and precisely to immobilize George with a choke hold that left him barely able to breathe, let alone fight back. In this moment of helplessness, Tammy revealed the true nature of this setup, accusing George of infidelity during his business trips and declaring her intention of revenge. Was left in shock, his mind racing to understand how a simple sprained ankle had led to this moment of betrayal and imminent danger. With George immobilized and struggling for breath, Tammy's voice broke the tension as she revealed the depth of her betrayal. She spoke of knowing about George's alleged infidelities during his business trips, something George knew. The revelation that Chad had betrayed him by feeding Tammy these lies only added to the shock. Tammy declared that she intended to hurt George as she believed he had hurt her, with Chad and Tyrone as willing participants in her plan for revenge. Before George could protest or defend himself, Tyrone placed a cloth over his mouth and nose, soaked with a chemical that quickly rendered him unconscious. The world went black for George, leaving him helpless and at the mercy of his wife and supposed friends. His situation was dire. The restraints were so tight that they threatened to cut off the circulation to his limbs, causing him immense pain and risking serious injury. The realization that his wife had orchestrated this entire scenario as a form of twisted retribution was almost too much to bear. Tammy looked directly at George with a chilling smile and declared her intention to enjoy herself with him, while George was forced to watch as this perverse form of revenge shattered any remaining illusions George had about his marriage or his family. Despite the excruciating pain and psychological torment, George's survival instincts kicked in, and he began to work on freeing himself, concentrating first on his left leg, despite the pain it caused him. With determination and desperation fueling his efforts, George managed to break the wire binding his left ankle. This small victory gave him hope, and he turned his attention to freeing his other leg, enduring the pain and bleeding that resulted from his efforts. Once his legs were free, George worked to free his arms using his teeth and whatever strength he had left. Finally free of his physical restraints, George faced the immediate challenge of dealing with his injuries and finding a way to escape the nightmare scenario that Tammy had created, free of his bonds but suffering. His ankles and wrists were bleeding, a testament to the severity of his bondage and his desperate struggle for freedom. The guest bedroom, a place of temporary confinement, offered no immediate solutions to his injuries. Despite the pain and dizziness that clouded his thoughts, George's survival instincts drove him forward, recognizing the need for first aid to prevent further blood loss and potentially life-threatening complications. The house, once a symbol of his marital and personal stability, had been transformed into a hostile environment, yet it still contained the resources he needed to treat his injuries. George meticulously avoided leaving any traces of blood in places that would indicate his escape route, ensuring that Tammy and her accomplices would be left guessing as to his whereabouts. Using the supplies he found in the guest bathroom, George managed to bandage his wounds, albeit with difficulty. The decision to leave his injuries partially untreated, particularly his right wrist, was a calculated decision to support the narrative he planned to present to the authorities, with his immediate medical needs addressed. George's focus shifted to the next phase of his plan, understanding the gravity of the situation and the need for legal intervention. The call, designed to convey urgency and fear, was a strategic move to ensure a rapid police response. Dropping the phone without disconnecting it was the final touch, adding to the authenticity of his plea for help. George's escape from the house was a silent testament to his determination and will to survive the trail. The trail of blood he deliberately left behind served several purposes. It was a clue for the police, a message to Tammy and her accomplice, and part of his larger plan to ensure that justice was served. His careful steps to avoid detection underscored the seriousness with which he approached his escape, knowing that the slightest mistake could lead to his recapture or worse, the empty lot opposite his house became George's temporary sanctuary, a place to hide and await the unfolding of the events he had set in motion. As he sat hidden, bandaging his last wound, George was a mixture of emotions. There was fear of what was to come, relief at having escaped, and a burning desire for justice. The wait for the police to arrive was tense. Filled with anticipation and anxiety, George knew that the coming hours would be crucial. As George waited in the shadows behind the bushes of the empty lot, the anticipation was palpable, his calculated escape and meticulously laid trail of evidence about to bear fruit. The arrival of the first police car marked the beginning of the endgame for Tammy's twisted revenge plot. The police's methodical approach, ensuring they had backup before making their presence known, spoke volumes about the seriousness with which they had taken the 911 call. George's mixture of emotions, fear, anticipation, and a hint of hope intensified as he watched Tammy's plan unravel before his eyes. The officer's decision to ring the doorbell rather than forcibly enter was a testament to their professionalism and adherence to protocol, despite the urgency of the situation. Tammy's reaction to the police at her door, as George imagined it from his distant vantage point, was a moment he had imagined countless times during his wait. Her shock and potential panic at being confronted by law enforcement was to George a form of poetic justice. He had carefully orchestrated his escape and the evidence he had left behind to ensure that Tammy and her accomplice would face the consequences of their actions. The discovery of Chad and Tyrone attempting to flee the scene only added to the credibility of George's distress call. The police's swift action in apprehending them removed any doubt as to their involvement in the night's events. George's heart raced as he saw his plan come to fruition, the pieces falling into place just as he had hoped. But despite the satisfaction of seeing Tammy, Chad, and Tyrone face immediate accountability, George was acutely aware of the complexities that lay ahead. The legal system would now take over, and the narrative he had set in motion would be scrutinized. His own role in this drama, as the victim of a heinous plot, would come under the spotlight, and he prepared himself for the challenges that awaited him. The arrival of additional police units and the subsequent search of Tyrone's car brought a new level of gravity to the situation, with the discovery of drugs and weapons linked to Tyrone adding a layer of criminality that went beyond the personal vendetta Tammy Chad had against him. Of criminality that went beyond the personal vendetta that Tammy had initiated. It underlined the dangerous elements that Chad had introduced into their lives, and further vindicated George's decision to escape and seek justice. As George watched the scene unfold, with Tammy, Chad, and Tyrone being led away in handcuffs, a mixture of relief and sadness washed over him. Relief that his tormentors were being held to account, but sadness for the victims. The crime scene tape across the front door of his home was a stark symbol of that loss, a visual reminder of how far things had strayed from the life he thought he knew. With the immediate threat neutralized and his role as invisible observer coming to an end, George knew it was time to step out of the shadows. His journey from victim to survivor was far from over, but the events of the night had set him on a path towards reclaiming his life and seeking justice for the wrongs done to him. The walk to the McDonald's, the interaction with the manager, and the reflective moments over a cup of coffee were steps towards normalization, a brief respite in the eye of the storm. As George considered his next steps, the complexity of his situation became clear. The need to navigate the legal system, the public scrutiny that would inevitably follow, and the personal healing process were all daunting prospects. Yet amidst these challenges, there was a glimmer of hope, a chance for George to rebuild and find peace. After the turmoil that had turned his life upside down, after leaving the sanctuary of the McDonald's, George embarked on a solitary journey to a familiar park. This walk, though physically taxing due to his injuries, was a necessary step in his carefully laid plan. It provided him not only with physical distance from the immediate aftermath at home, but also an opportunity to strategize his reentry into a world that believed in him. The park, a place of public recreation, would soon become the setting for the next act in George's meticulously crafted narrative. As dawn approached, George positioned himself in a vulnerable state beside a jogging path, expecting to be discovered by the park's early morning visitors. This was a calculated vulnerability, designed to ensure that his reemergence into the public eye would be framed in the context of his victimhood, reinforcing the authenticity of his earlier 911 call. The arrival of the ambulance, prompted by a concerned jogger or dog walker, was the culmination of this phase of George's plan. This phase of George's plan was a critical juncture, transforming him from a hidden observer to an active participant in the unfolding legal drama at the hospital. Unidentified and feigning incoherence, George played the part of a disoriented and traumatized victim. This act was crucial not only to maintain the illusion of his terrible escape, but also to buy time as he mentally prepared for the inevitable confrontation with the police. His selective responsiveness and feigned memory lapses were strategically designed to elicit sympathy and avoid immediate pressure for detailed explanations that might complicate his narrative. The narrative Detective Mason's arrival and subsequent interrogation represented a pivotal moment for George. The detective's questions were a bridge between George's fabricated scenario and the real investigation that was unfolding. George's answers, carefully balanced between truth and deception, were designed to present him as a sympathetic figure. This delicate dance of truth and manipulation was George's attempt to shape the narrative, ensuring that his side of the story would form the basis of the police investigation. It forced him to confront not only the physical consequences of the betrayal, but also the damage to his reputation and the emotional turmoil of being falsely accused. George's vehement denial and the detective's reaction to it highlighted the intricate web of lies and truths that George had to navigate. His portrayal of innocence and bewilderment at the accusations was a calculated attempt to garner further sympathy and credibility. George's release from hospital and return home marked the transition from the immediate crisis to the long-term consequences of the night of the 7th. Tammy's message pleading for understanding and support was a stark reminder of the tangled emotional and legal web that awaited George. His decision to erase the message and reach for a beer was symbolic, a moment when he chose to distance himself from the emotional manipulation that had characterized his relationship with Tammy. The phone call from Susan Crawford, Tammy's best friend, introduced a new dynamic into the unfolding drama. Susan's attempt to mediate and bring George and Tammy to some form of reconciliation was met with skepticism and a renewed determination by George to distance himself from Tammy. A renewed determination on George's part to distance himself from the toxic environment that had led to his betrayal. The conversation with Susan and her subsequent attempt at seduction underscored the complex interplay of relationships and motivations surrounding George's polite rejection of her advances was a clear line in the sand, signifying his commitment to move forward without the influences that had contributed to his downfall. George's visit to attorney Brian L. Townsend was a decisive step towards severing the legal and emotional ties that bound him to Tammy. Despite Townsend's cautionary advice, George's insistence on proceeding with the divorce proceedings reflected his desire to be free of the influence of Tammy's past. The lawyer's reluctance and eventual acquiescence to George's demands illustrated the tension between professional judgment and client autonomy, a tension that would continue to play out as the legal process unfolded. The closure of joint accounts and the cancellation of credit cards were pragmatic measures to secure George's financial independence and protect his assets from potential legal entanglements. Fraught with legal challenges, emotional turmoil, and the daunting task of rebuilding a life shattered by betrayal and deception, as George navigated the turbulent waters of divorce proceedings and the fallout from Tammy's conspiracy, his life became a balancing act of legal challenges and personal recovery. The weeks following his dramatic escape and subsequent hospitalization were marked by introspection and a resolute determination to rebuild his life on his own terms. Tammy's attempts to reach George through several phone calls were met with a stoic silence. George's refusal to engage was not only an act of self-preservation, but also a clear message that he would not be disturbed. This period of no contact was crucial for George, allowing him the space to process the betrayal and begin to lay the foundations for his future without Tammy. The call from George's solicitor, revealing Tammy's terms for contesting the divorce, presented a new dilemma. Her request for a meeting to explain her side of the story forced George to confront the possibility of facing Tammy again, this time in a legal and emotionally charged environment. George's request for time to consider the proposal was a tactical delay, allowing him to weigh the implications of such a meeting against the potential benefits of a quicker resolution. Over the following month, George took deliberate steps to rebuild his life, both personally and professionally. His decision to delay responding to Tammy's divorce terms was part of a wider strategy to take control of the situation and dictate the terms of their separation. This period of strategic delay underscored George's transition from a victim of circumstance to an active participant in shaping his own destiny. When George finally contacted his lawyer to inquire about Tammy's lingering demand for a meeting, it was with a sense of calculated determination that he made the decision to refuse a face-to-face meeting. To George's message to Tammy, communicated through his lawyer, was clear: he was moving forward with or without her consent. The visit to Chad's wife, Beverly, opened a new chapter in George's personal life. Beverly's willingness to comfort George and their subsequent intimacy was a bittersweet reminder of the complexities of relationships. Their bond, born out of shared betrayal and pain, offered George a glimpse of companionship and understanding that had been missing from his marriage to Tammy. George's interaction with the district attorney's office brought the legal ramifications of Tammy's actions into sharp focus. His commitment to seeing justice served, despite the personal cost, reflected a deep-seated need for closure and accountability. George's refusal to drop the charges against Tammy and her co-conspirators was not just of the legal outcomes for Tammy. Chad and Tyrone were a mixed bag of justice. Tyrone's conviction and the sentences handed down to Chad and Tammy represented a formal acknowledgement of their wrongdoing. For George, these legal resolutions were a necessary, if insufficient, step towards closure. The fact that Tammy received the lightest sentence, probation for a felony conviction, was a stark reminder of the often complex outcomes of the legal process. His divorce from Tammy, the decision to serve her with divorce papers at her parents' home, was a symbolic severing of their marital ties. George's proactive measures, including closing joint accounts and canceling credit cards, were pragmatic steps to protect his financial interests and begin building a new life free of Tammy's influence. The weeks that followed were a period of reflection for George, as he grappled with the emotional and practical realities of ending his marriage. Tammy's persistent attempts to contact him, culminating in a phone call from his solicitor about her willingness to contest the divorce, were met with a mixture of frustration and determination. This period of legal and emotional limbo was punctuated by George's visit to Beverly, Chad's wife. Their mutual comfort in each other's company, born out of shared experiences of betrayal, offered a semblance of normality and companionship amidst the chaos. Beverly's openness and the intimacy they shared were rays of hope in George's otherwise tumultuous life, suggesting the possibility of new beginnings and the healing power of human connection as George navigated the complexities of his life. As George navigated the complexities of divorce, legal retribution, and personal healing, his journey was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of betrayal and adversity. The legal entanglements and emotional scars would take time to heal, but George's steps towards rebuilding his life were marked by a cautious optimism and a sense of hope. With a cautious optimism and a renewed sense of purpose in the wake of the legal battles and personal upheaval, George found an unexpected ally in Beverly, Chad's estranged wife. Their budding relationship, though unexpected, offered George a sense of companionship and mutual understanding that had been sorely lacking in his marriage. For Tammy, Beverly's acceptance and the emotional connection they shared were bright spots in an otherwise tumultuous period of George's life. This new relationship underscored the possibility of finding hope and a new beginning in the aftermath of betrayal, as George continued to navigate the complexities of his divorce and its aftermath. The ongoing legal proceedings and his interactions with the police and the Crown Prosecution Service underlined the serious implications of the crimes committed against him and George's determination to see the process through. Despite the personal and emotional toll, reflecting his commitment to accountability and closure, the meeting with Assistant Crown Prosecutor Andrew Harley was a pivotal moment for George, forcing him to confront the reality of the legal system and the choices he had to make about pressing charges against Tammy and her accomplices. George's insistence on not dropping the charges was a testament to his desire for justice, even as he grappled with the complexity of his feelings for Tammy. This decision marked a significant step in George's journey to move on from the betrayal and focus on his future. Through desperate phone calls, and then through Susan Crawford, George's decision to meet Tammy, however reluctantly, was driven by a mixture of curiosity and a desire for closure. By allowing George to face Tammy and express the depth of his hurt and betrayal directly, Tammy's plea for forgiveness and her attempt to justify her actions by blaming her belief in George's infidelity revealed her inability to fully grasp the consequences of her betrayal. They signified George's realization that some betrayals are irreparable, and that moving forward sometimes means leaving the past behind. The emotional weight of this realization was palpable as George walked away from Tammy for the last time. His journey had taken him from victim to survivor, navigating the pain of betrayal, the complexities of the legal system, and the challenges of rebuilding his life. George's resilience and determination to forge a new path were evident in his actions and decisions, reflecting a deep understanding of his worth and the importance of self-respect. In the months that followed, George's life took on a new rhythm. His relationship with Beverly blossomed into something meaningful, offering them both a chance at happiness that had seemed elusive in their previous marriages. The culmination of George's legal and personal journey was marked by a sense of hard peace. His divorce from Tammy was finally finalized, freeing George from the last legal ties that bound them together. It was a bittersweet end to a chapter of his life that had tested his strength, resilience, and capacity for forgiveness. George's story is a testament to the human capacity for resilience in the face of profound betrayal. It highlights the complex interplay between justice, forgiveness, and the pursuit of personal healing. As George moved forward, his journey remained a powerful reminder of the importance of confronting the past, holding others accountable for their actions, and the transformative power of new beginnings. The journey from betrayal to healing had been arduous, marked by moments of despair, anger, and ultimately renewal. George's ability to rebuild his life, find love and trust. Reconnecting with Beverly was a testament to his resilience and the human capacity for recovery. The finalized divorce from Tammy marked not only the end of their legal ties, but also the closure of a deeply painful chapter in George's life, a necessary step for him to fully embrace the future he was building with Beverly. Their relationship, born out of shared experiences of betrayal, had evolved into a profound bond that offered both a second chance at happiness and a life built on mutual respect and understanding. The legal settlements, while bringing a measure of justice, also prompted George to reflect on the complexities of forgiveness and redemption, while the courtroom provided a venue for accountability. True healing began in the quiet moments of introspection and the daily acts of choosing to move forward. George realized that while he could not get the betrayal back, he could choose not to let it define him. This realization was liberating, allowing him to fully commit to his future. During this period of growth and healing, George also found himself becoming a source of support and strength to others who had experienced similar betrayals. His journey, marked by both vulnerability and resilience, served as an inspiration to those struggling to find their way through the aftermath of betrayal. George discovered a sense of purpose in helping others find their way to healing, sharing his insights and the lessons he had learned about trust, forgiveness, and the importance of self-care. As George and Beverly's relationship blossomed, they began to make plans for their future together. Their conversations about marriage, family, and shared dreams were filled with a sense of hope and excitement for what lay ahead. The decision to choose Mary Beverly was a significant milestone for George, symbolizing not only his love for her, but also his commitment to embrace life after betrayal. Their wedding, a celebration with close friends and family, was a joyful affirmation of their journey from pain to healing, from isolation to connection. It was a declaration of their shared belief in the possibility of new beginnings and the power of love to heal and transform. In marrying Beverly, George found not only happiness, but a sense of peace and fulfillment that had once seemed impossible. George's journey, marked by moments of darkness and light, had brought him to a place of understanding and acceptance, where the scar of the past no longer held power over his present or his future. As George looked forward to the years ahead with Beverly, he did so with gratitude for the lessons he had learned and the strength he had gained through his trials. He understood that life's challenges can either define us or refine us, and he chose the latter. Together with Beverly, George stepped into a future filled with hope, armed with the knowledge that love, resilience, and forgiveness are the keys to overcoming even the deepest wounds. Their story is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a tale of redemption, love, and the unbreakable bonds that rise from the ashes of betrayal into the gentle embrace of a new dawn. George stood beside Beverly, his heart overflowing with a sense of completion and profound gratitude, their journey together interwoven with lessons in resilience, forgiveness, and the relentless pursuit of happiness had culminated in a bond that was both sacred and invincible. As they looked towards the horizon, the symbolism of the rising sun mirrored their own resurrection from the depths of despair to the heights of hope and renewal. George recognized the indelible marks of growth and transformation within himself. The ordeal with Tammy, while fraught with pain and betrayal, had inadvertently become a crucible for his evolution, forcing him to confront his deepest fears, to question the nature of trust and loyalty, and ultimately to rediscover his capacity for love. Their marriage was not only a testament to their love for each other, but also a declaration of their triumph over adversity. In their union, they found not only refuge, but also a profound sense of purpose and belonging. As George reflected on the winding path that led him to Beverly, he realized that the most profound lessons often come from the most unexpected sources. The betrayal that once threatened to shatter his world had instead paved the way. It taught him that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a gateway to true intimacy, that forgiveness is a gift to oneself, and that love in its truest form is both resilient and redemptive. The cornerstone of their relationship, they had become each other's confidant, cheerleader, and refuge, embodying the essence of partnership and mutual respect. Their love story, a beacon of hope for those coping with the aftermath of betrayal, served as a reminder that it is possible to find love and happiness after heartbreak. As they planned for their future, George and they understood that while they could not change what had happened, they had the power to shape their destiny with each passing day. They chose love, forgiveness, and kindness, and woven these values into the fabric of their relationship. They looked forward to exploring the world together, growing old together, and building a legacy. In the end, George's journey from the depths of despair to the pinnacle of personal and relational fulfillment was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It underscored the transformative power of love and the redemptive quality of forgiveness. As George and Beverly moved forward hand in hand, they did so knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, strengthened by their past experiences and buoyed by their unwavering commitment to each other. Their story, a mosaic of pain, healing, and love, was a profound tale of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there are glimmers of hope. George and Beverly's journey was a celebration of life's capacity for renewal, and the enduring power of love to heal, to unite, and to propel us towards our highest selves. Together they stepped into the future, their hearts full, their spirits uplifted, and their eyes open to the infinite possibilities that awaited them.